Hey everybody, I'm going to keep up with my theme. I will do some more finance this week, but I wanted to talk about Social Security for a minute. A lot of people don't know how it works or whether or not they'll ever have it. We hear that it's in trouble and it's underfunded. So for a minute, I'm just going to explain to you how the very, very basic Social Security work and one idea that I have that I think would fix it. So when you look at your paycheck stub, you have a Social Security tax that comes out, and that money goes and it pays for other people's Social Security. And then what's supposed to happen is when you get old, they're supposed to have Social Security there for you. And the way this has always worked has been perfect because it was built on a tradition in America that's always happened. Pardon my god-awful handwriting, but, and then I drew one on the back and messed it all up. So in America, our generations always kept getting bigger as we went along. And this one right here, this big gap here, this is the baby boomers, okay? This is like my parents' age, and I'm 40, okay? So I'm in the generation after that, which is the little box at the top called Gen X. But the way it worked was that the working population at the time, so for example, here, this working population was paying for the Social Security of a tinier population that was already retired. Now, when these guys retired, this big generation here was paying for them, and so on and so forth. And this seemed like a really good model. And it worked for almost 100 years until something odd happened, and that was my generation. And we were smaller than the baby boomers for the first time in almost 100 years. So all of a sudden, our triangle didn't grow anymore, okay? It should have gotten bigger up here, like an inverted pyramid, but my generation right here was smaller, which means that as the baby boomers retire, and they are all getting into that age group now, there are fewer of us working to support them. And so I've heard different ranges, and I know it's a big range, but I'm going to give you what I've heard and what I've read, and the consensus is between 25 and 40 years from today, we are solvent. Okay, so somewhere in that range, we've got the money for and everybody's good. I am 40, so anywhere between when I am 65 and 80, the system should run out of money. But I had a thought on this, and we would have to determine the number, but I think what we should do is we should do what's called means testing. Means being, do you have the means to pay for your retirement? And I don't know what that number is. We could start it at $50 million in net worth and work backwards. We could test it at 50, and then 45, and then 40, and keep working backwards until we get to a place where we would find a number and say, you already have the means to live comfortably in retirement without Social Security. So even though you spent your whole life paying in, you're not going to get a Social Security check when you reach retirement age. And you can file for Social Security as early as 62, and you can wait till as late as 72. And the longer you wait, the more money you will get every month from Social Security. So if you claim it at 62 and I wait till I'm 72, it is substantially more money the longer you can wait. Now, some people out there are never going to need Social Security, and it gets up to as high as I think about $4,000 a month, which is like $48,000 a year. But if you are part of the 1%, or maybe even 5, 10, 20%, I don't really know. We'd have to sit down and study it, and I don't have the means or the data to do that. But I know there are a whole lot of people out there that to them, $4,000 a month is going to be a laughable joke. And they've got either millions or tens or hundreds of millions, and some people billions of dollars that they will take with them into retirement. So my thought was, why don't we means test it? And if you already have the means to have a comfortable retirement, we could probably fix this screwed up gap up here for my generation by simply telling people that are baby boomers that have the means to have a good retirement, you're not going to get a check. And if you're somebody like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, back when Steve Jobs was alive, newer people like Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, Travis Kalanick, who ran and founded Uber. And these people aren't going to really need their Social Security check. So one of my thoughts on an easy way to fix it, which I would think would almost be bipartisan, would be to just simply means test the system and say, hey, at this amount of money that you already have, you're not going to get your Social Security check. And then we could take those people out of the system that we wouldn't be paying. I don't hear a lot of candidates talk about this. The one thing I have heard is that it is such a sensitive issue when it comes to messing with Social Security that the person who does decide to champion this and fix it will have to guarantee themselves a one-term presidency because they would never get reelected. But it would fix the system. With Joe Biden's age, hopping in the Democratic race, maybe that could be him. Maybe he could take a much younger running mate with him to be VP on his ticket. Maybe he could tackle this. I don't know. But that was an idea I had. And then if you look at the generations, then it gets kind of weird. Like after Generation X, Generation Y got slightly bigger than us, not enough to afford to pay for us. And then Generation Z got huge, which is going to be it's going to depend on what happens after Generation Z, which is the youngest generation right now, whether or not that generation gets bigger than them or not. Because you got to remember, we're paying this backwards. So like all the taxes that almost every one of you that I know right now that are my friends, we are paying for our parents' Social Security because we're a way bigger working population than they ever were. But the problem is, I'm sorry, they're, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting myself confused. We were supposed to be way bigger and we weren't. So, the boomers paying for our grandparents was easy, and there was never even a question as to the solvency of Social Security. But when Generation X came in so much smaller than the boomers, that's when we realized, okay, we got a problem here. And I think because in all of America's history, we kept having bigger and bigger generations, we kind of just assumed when we made Social Security that what has always happened will always happen. And that's kind of a rule I try to not look at too much, especially in the world of investing. Just because something's always gone up doesn't mean it always will. And just because it always goes down doesn't mean it always will go down. So I think we kind of choked on that one. But given that, I think means testing would be an easy, nonpartisan way of maybe fixing some of the gap in our Social Security funding. If you have any better ideas, let me know. I try to avoid adding any new taxes or any new expenditures, leaving everything alone just as it is, but removing people at a certain level, and maybe that level is $10 million in net worth. That's the thought I would have. If you have $10 million or more in net worth at the age of 62, then you will not get your Social Security check. Chime in if you agree or disagree or have any better ideas, but try to keep it civil. I'll delete stuff that's not healthy back and forth, because I think what we're missing a lot of in this country this day and age is healthy back and forth and listening to each other and trying to solve problems together. So if you took the time to watch this and you have any ideas, toss them out there.